What's up, everybody? It's Wabacha, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about a new build that I've been playing. It is a summoner build. Oh man, I'm finally playing a summoner build, and I'm not going to lie to you. It's not a big clear speed build. It's not, and it's kind of clunky at times. It is Animate Weapon instead of like Specters or whatever other summoner builds there are out there. But I am actually playing an Animate Weapon build, and this is because I actually really love the idea of Animate Weapon. I'm not really that into the mechanics of most summoners, but Animate Weapon has I think it's like really cool that you could just kind of like build this army from the ground up, kind of not the same that you would summon things, but I really like it. Though the one thing about it is very gated. The clear speed that you get is very gated by the amount of weapons that drop, and you know everything. There's a whole bunch of other things to it as well that makes it a little bit more difficult to do things like labs or just any other endgame content where you need weapons. You may not get the weapons. You actually end up needing this whole like weapons tab where you just throw weapons in there. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because this is a build that I've been working on. I just looked up a 2.3 animator I just had looked up a 2.3 animate weapon build on the forums. I saw where it was going, and I had some ideas of how I could change it a little bit to make it a little bit more defensive, because I didn't feel like it was strong enough defensively for me to feel comfortable playing with it. So I had done some things, and the thing was I wanted to go into a guide straight away because I felt like everything was going really well with it. But I had some realizations yesterday about this build, and I'm going to tell you guys about them first. You know, what my initial perception was and and the reality was later. So initially, my first idea was, okay, I'm going to be using this unique here, the Advancing Fortress, which gives us block, and it just gives us a little bit of evasion, a little bit of energy shield, and it gives us level 12 Fortify linked to all the supported, or all the gems that are socketed to it. And this saves us a link, and most summoner builds are pretty link starved, or not link starved, but socket starved. So you'll see people who run things like an unset ring to help this out. So we're using this for block, and then we're also going to be getting a bunch of spell blocks. So this is actually when I have my bone offering up, you know, because I believe it's Mistress of Sacrifice. When I have my bone offering up, I am max block, and I keep that up majority of the time. And yeah, so it is very defensive. It utilizes Eldritch Battery and Mind Over Matter because Animate Weapon has an extremely high mana cost, and you can't really sustain. I don't think you can sustain off of mana. It's like 170 something, and it's 5 linked right now. So, but the idea that I thought I had, that I thought would work, was using Kintsugi. Now, Kintsugi is the new unique exquisite leather that makes it to where you take 20% less damage if you have not been hit recently. And this build, I was layering evasion on top of block. Okay, but I block quite a bit. And block is determined after your evasion. If you failed an evasion, or if you failed to evade or dodge, I already looked at this. But yeah, block is rolled after it's determined if you have failed to evade or failed to dodge. And then, as I was talking to some people about it, they brought up the fact that when you block, you actually are getting hit. You're just negating all your damage. So this actually does not work the way I thought that it did. Mostly because I I thought of it as in, if I'm blocking, I'm not taking damage, therefore I'm not getting hit. But when you are blocking, you are taking a hit, you're just negating 100% of the damage. So I might be wrong on this still. It might actually work the way that I think it does, but I think it's safe to say that it doesn't. So, and the reason why I was going to go straight into a build, and now all of a sudden I have this video where I'm talking about this, is because there's a huge range of items for me to use in my chest slot. There's a couple of really cool. The one that I really want is the Cloak of Tomer, but it's one of the new unique items that you could only get through the vendor of a level 8 master. And what it does is it makes it to where all the magic weapons that drop identified. And this helps. This is a huge quality of life to an animate weapon build, because sometimes, maps get rarity on them. Sometimes you will get magic weapons all the time, but you won't necessarily get white weapons, so you can animate them. But like I said, going back to the fact that Kintsugi doesn't really work the way I thought it was, I could use a carcass jack technically, and I'll explain that in a little bit more soon enough. But I could use a belly of the beast. That's another really good one that actually gives me a lot of life, and I'm really looking at that. Technically, if you really want, you could use a beast for shawl, being that you are Eldritch Battery Mind over Matter. But I am leaning towards any chest piece that gives me life, because I'm already using a couple pieces that don't really have life on them. Mainly being, I'm using a Wrathpith Globe. I know that has 10% increased maximum life, but I don't really consider this to be like having life, because you need your base life in order to make use of that 10% maximum life. As we can see, this gives me 190, so that's all right. Another thing that I'm using that doesn't have any life is, right now I'm using an Alpha's Howl. Originally, when I was doing this build, I was going to be going with an elemental version of Animate Weapon, but I'm actually doing a poison version of it, and I'll go into why I'm doing that a little bit later. But I'm using an Alpha's Howl, and then when I'm elemental, Alpha's Howl is considerably better because it's giving you levels on Wrath and Anger, and that increases your damage substantially. But I'm using an Alpha's Howl, and I'm not using Wrath and Anger. I'm using Haste, Grace, and Vitality. And now this does a couple of things. One, it gives my minions a lot more defense. It gives them more sustainability. The Vitality is great for them. Vitality also gives me, the Grace also affects me. The Vitality also affects me. So that really helps out my Eldritch Battery, my Zealot's Oath, and everything else. And then like I said, the Grace helps me, and the Haste also gives everyone attack speed, cast speed, and movement speed. But what I'm thinking about actually doing is, this is a combo that I'm thinking about using. I'm thinking about using Vertex with a Belly of the Beast, because this combination right here gives me quite a bit. It gives me, 5,900 HP. At level 90, I'm sure I'll be really close to 6k HP, and I get a lot of energy shield from this. And this is actually, I feel like this is putting Eldritch Battery Mind over Matter into a very like tanky spot. And the big thing about Eldritch Battery and Mind over Matter is, with the way it works now, is you absolutely need to have as much Chaos Resist as possible, because Chaos Resist, before the change to Eldritch Battery, when it just converted all your energy shield to mana, whenever you took a hit from chaos damage, from direct chaos damage, it would also hit your mana as well. But now that Eldritch Battery covers your mana with Energy Shield, it has the same effect that regular Energy Shield does. As in, if you take a Chaos direct hit, it will only be taken out of your life because it ignores energy shield. So this makes chaos resist that much more important now on Eldritch Battery and Mind Over Matter.
By what?
Jungle Valley boss. Oh my god. Holy shit. I just forgot. I just fucking forgot he did chaos damage.
You're such a noob, dude.
Oh my god, I totally forgot he fucking does chaos damage.
So as you can see, this does make me quite a bit tankier, and the more and more energy shield that you have, the more you're going to get out of your regen. So yeah, and then everywhere else I'm just pretty much using rares. I alked this belt. This is a really nice belt. The resistances are a little low, but all the other values on it are fantastic. I was able to pick up these boots. I was going for more evasion and energy shield. I don't know what I'm going to do about that now after what I realized about Kugi. I also got these gloves. I got these gloves were a fantastic deal for me. I bought them for like 3 chaos. I couldn't believe it when I asked the guy, I was like, oh, hey, how much do you want for those? And he said 3 chaos. I was blown away. So yeah, I have, a Wrath Pith, Advancing Fortress, right now a Kugi and an Alpha's Howl, but I'm going to be changing this very, very soon. But let's go ahead and talk about the skill gems that I'm using and why I'm using them. So earlier I had mentioned that I am actually poison instead of elemental damage. And this is kind of the same reason that I went for poison instead of elemental on my last Shockwave Totem build, because I don't have to worry about elemental equilibrium. I don't have to worry about resistances, anything like that. I feel like poison and dealing chaos damage is just, it's a little bit better when it comes to overall damage output. Just because when you have a mob, you could argue that if you deal lightning damage, you get the benefit of having the status ailment of shocking, right? However, if they have a lot of lightning resist, not only are you dealing a substantially less amount of lightning damage, that affects the shock duration, which in turn affects everything else. So elemental damage is based around its ailments, while chaos damage, I don't feel like is based or balanced around its ailments the same way. So I am using an Animate Weapon with increased duration, melee splash, added chaos, and poison. And the way I understand it, added chaos, I'm just going to be saying this, correct me if I'm wrong, I've looked a little bit into this. I'm going more off the tooltip, but as it appears to me, there's no damage effectiveness on Animate Weapon, giving me the full benefit of the chaos damage. And the way that Animate Weapon works is it takes the damage of so it adds quite a bit of damage, and as you can see, it adds 37 to 55 physical damage, and this adds 153 to 229. This is a lot of damage. And the other thing that it really does is it gives Animate Weapon insane, absolutely in the fastest single target damage I've ever even seen. I'm only 5 linked right now, and this is with me using melee splash. If I swap this in with a huge number of other things, this could eventually be faster attacks. This could be minion damage, multi-strike. If I could use those things, it would go up. But the single target damage that I've seen so far is extremely high. I have not gone into any higher than tier 10 maps yet, only because I'm really getting used to the mechanics of this build and really trying to figure it out. Because, like I said, this is my first summoner build, so I'm not used to it at all. Now, there's a couple other things that I'm doing here. We already talked about the auras I'm using: Grace, Vitality, Haste. I use Wither with this build because it's a great way. Once you get your 30 to 50 minions, You get them on a boss, you just start channeling Wither, and then within 2 seconds, every single boss is dead. So yeah, I'm also using Whirling Blades, faster attacks, a Stone Golem. The Stone Golem is great because not only does it benefit all of our minions with the flat life regen, it also gives us that flat life regen that we then convert to energy shield regen, which works for Zealot's Oath. We are also using, Raise Zombie, Animate Guardian. I will eventually be getting Flesh Binder, which will be giving me just physical damage per each zombie that I own. I've played around with Beacon of Corruption a little bit. I don't know how I feel about Beacon of Corruption yet. I might actually end up getting this. What I really like about Beacon of Corruption is this first point, the damage and the chaos resist. And then on the second point, the chaos resist for me and my minions is great. And if this was 20% increased minion damage instead of chaos damage, I would like it that much more, because I don't really like the idea of wanting my minions to die to benefit from Beacon of Corruption. I felt like that was kind of counterintuitive, because I'm keeping them alive as long as possible. So that takes away some of that value that Beacon of Corruption is balanced around. So yeah, Animate Guardian, Raise Zombie. Now here's one thing that I do that I haven't really seen too many other people do, but I also use Blade Vortex. And I do this because I have Blade Vortex. I do it for a few things, but I have Blade Vortex linked with Life Leech and Curse on Hit and Vulnerability. And the reason why is because as I'm like going through packs, I'll be whirling around, I could curse things. And since I am Zealot's Oath, I don't have my life regen, so any little bits of damage that I take here and there, the Life Leech on Blade Vortex actually helps out quite a bit. And then I also use a Bone Offering with increased duration, Val Haste, and Convocation. This is all pretty straightforward for a summoner. There's kind of a lot going on here, but yeah. So the differences that I feel like I'm doing is just the whole Blade Vortex and Life Leech thing that I have going on. But I said that because of what I had realized yesterday, that kind of threw me for a loop on some things. So since Kintsugi doesn't work the way I think it does, because I thought it would work with blocking, I think I'm going to no longer be using Grace, but instead I'm going to be using Temp Chains with the Blasphemy. And the reason why I'm going to be using Temp Chains with Blasphemy is because it serves many purposes compared to Grace. Grace is extremely and entirely defensive. It gives Grace to all my minions. It gives evasion to all my minions, and it gives evasion to me. However, Temp Chains protects my minions a lot more, and it actually aids my damage, because whenever a mob has Temp Chains on it, poison duration lasts quite a bit longer, and it makes mobs attack slower, it makes mobs cast slower. It does all these things, and the one thing that does really hurt me a lot, or kill my weapons, are spells. And there are a couple of ways you could deal with this. A lot of people use the unique item Blood of Corruption, which gives you that level 10 Gluttony of Elements skill. It also gives you a fair amount of chaos resistance, which, as I said, is very good before. For that reason, I do like the item, because it gives you a lot of chaos resist. But it also has a drawback of having minus 10 to 5% all elemental resistances. So although we are elemental resist capped right now for elemental weakness and yada yada yada, I still don't really know how I feel about it. Also, it's very specific to use Gluttony of Elements whenever your mobs are about to take elemental damage. I prefer to try to Convocation out. I try to do things about it. Maybe I won't be able to do this at later levels. Maybe Blood of Corruption is something that I will add as I go on as I get into higher level maps and as I start to play this build more and really figure things out. But as of right now, I would rather use temp chains, because I think that overall that's much better defensively, because it slows a lot of things down, and it, you know, from their movement speed, cast speed, attack speed, it also helps with damage because my poison will last longer. It makes all those last longer. And another thing, and that's kind of where the vertex comes into play, because the vertex will give me another level on my blasphemy, etc., etc., etc. I got this vertex for 30 chaos. I think it was a really good deal because it's a really well rolled vertex. Now, the one thing that Belly of the Beast is fantastic, and I'm thinking about using this because it gives me so much life. But that Cloak of Tamir, oh man, that Cloak of Tamir, it looks so good for Animate Weapon, because not only does it make it, you know, it's quality of life for Animate Weapon, which is great, but it also gives all of your socketed minions in the chest piece life leech, and it makes it to where they are immune to blind and they can cause blind. The only thing that Cloak of Tamir would do is I would lose quite a bit of life. And the big thing about Eldritch Battery Mind Over Matter is you need a really good balance between how much life you have and how much energy shield you have. And you need to make sure that you have enough life to sustain all of your energy shield so that you can actually absorb a one large hit if that were to ever happen. I don't think it's necessarily too bad if you are, like, let's say right now, just for numbers' sake, right now I have 1700 energy shield and 5400 life. That's balanced pretty well. This means that I have a little over 7k effective HP. But I wouldn't be able to get too much more effective HP right now. If I were to throw on this vertex and I have 1000 more effective energy shield, doesn't mean that I have 8k effective HP, because if I get hit for 8k, all my life would disappear before my energy shield disappears. So I would have energy shield left over. I've had this happen to me before. It is a balance that you have to strike. The one thing though is, if you are casting, you are eating into your and you're balanced out like this. If you're casting, right, and you're actually dipping down, you know, I'm casting Animate Weapon and I'm going 1700, 1500, 1300, 1100. I am dipping into my effective life pool. However, if you have more and you're casting and I'm going 2700, 2500, 2300, 2100, I'm actually not dipping into my effective life pool. That's one cool thing about having more energy shield. With than the balance that you need with life and energy shield for Eldritch Battery. The other cool thing is, let's just say a hypothetical, I take a really large hit and it drains all of my energy shield, right? If I take a very large hit and it drains all of my energy shield, but I use my seething flasks, I pop my life back up instantly, right? But I then I don't have my energy shield anymore. So if I take a really large hit and I'm overcapped, let's just say I get hit for 5k. I have 391 life left. All my energy shield is gone. I pop my flasks and I get back to 5300 life. With this, at least I would still have energy shield, so it would actually give me more effective HP after a large hit. So these are like things that really you need to think about with Eldritch Battery Mind Over Matter now. And that's kind of the reason, that's one of the reasons why I don't really want to use Cloak of Tamir, because it only gives me energy shield. But there are things you could do about this. If I use a Cloak of Tamir, I might actually drop Wrath Pith for something else that gives me life. But if I drop Wrath Pith, then I need to use a Stone of Lazwar instead. There's a whole bunch of things that I need to work out. Like I said, I thought I would have it figured out by now, but I don't. So I'm actually really enjoying this build. It's been a lot of fun. It is the only way I like to play Summoner, honestly. Oh, also, and for right now, ignore my flasks. I need to buy a Rumi's. A Rumi's concoction is something that I really, really need. And I'm going to figure out my flask situation. But like I said, there's so many parts of this build that I need to get figured out. And then I'll really start picking up a lot of pieces. Also, I don't have a lot of currency right now. But yeah, this video probably went way longer than I thought. I am sorry. Let me know, if you see any suggestions for me, or if you have any ideas, any feedback, just anything like that. Let me know. I'm really interested. I'm actually very excited for this build, and I'm really looking forward to playing more and getting into, like end game maps and actually making this something that I could be one of my go-tos. It's my first Summoner build, and yeah, so yeah. All right, guys. Peace out.